Mentorship is a
There
big
you go.
deal for us. So it really comes back to that mentorship. And I'll just be transparent. I'm in a new phase, even in my own leadership, because I've now been a CEO for 2 years. And so now it is much more on me to
That's correct.
mentor and grow that next level of leadership so that they're ready to take on the task.
So standing in the gap is about giving back. It's about showing up for people who have no one else to show up for them. I am Dr. Tonjua Williams, president of St. Petersburg College, and you are listening to Standing in the Gap. Welcome to another episode of Standing in the Gap with Dr. Tonjua Williams. We have the amazing, awesome opportunity to have Ryan Quattlebaum, CEO and President of AdventHealth North Pinellas, with us here today. Ryan came from a different pathway to leadership. He started as a dishwasher over 16 years ago at AdventHealth, and now he is the CEO. Today we're going to talk about how both AdventHealth and St. Petersburg College together stands in the gap for different groups, from clients to our patients, to our students, to the community, our workforce, and the state of Florida. We cannot do this work alone, so together, Ryan and I stand arm in arm. Welcome aboard, Ryan. We're glad you're here today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started and what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually got my start in healthcare in an unusual way. I started in the dish room of a hospital. I was fortunate enough to have two parents who grew up in the healthcare field. Both my parents are nurses. My grandmother's a nurse. So had a long history in the healthcare space. And that first job, though, it was really my father who helped get me the position. He worked in the hospital as a nurse, and he encouraged me to apply for this position when I was in high school, and so I did. It was really a great way to learn from the ground up what it means to care for patients and for people. Now I have the privilege of serving as the CEO at AdventHealth North Pinellas in Tarpon Springs, here in Pinellas County. So very excited to be a member of the Pinellas County community and serving the patients that we interact with. We serve about 30,000 patients a year, either through the ER, through the inpatient side, people that show up for screening, colonoscopies, or surgeries. But to me, that foundation of starting in the dish room provided the right setting, because I got to see the impact I made from just that one interaction every time. And so that's really what has kept me going.
That's amazing.
The size and scope and scale might be a little different now, but the work hasn't changed. It's still, how do you care and look after people?
You know, that's interesting for those in the audience. It's so important to understand it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And I hope you heard Ryan when he said he started as a dishwasher, and now he's the CEO of AdventHealth North County. That is simply amazing. You know, I'm a person of motto. I love mottos, I love statements, and I'm going to read the motto that we found for AdventHealth. It is, ensuring the highest standard of care is our commitment to every patient, every time. So how do you and your team uphold this standard on a daily basis?
Great question. So and I'll actually start with our mission statement, because I think actually the mission statement puts front and center of everything that we do. And our mission statement is extending the healing ministry of Christ. Now, it's a bold mission to put out there, because that means every single person and every single patient, we're extending Christ's healing ministry every time we have that encounter, right? So for us, and one of my board members actually said this the other day, she commented that we are tasked with near impossible work. And to me, that actually is exciting, because that means we have the opportunity to do something bold and different. And how we do that is really the work that I do. And that means, how do you inspire a team? How do you build a great culture? How do you hire, recruit, and retain physicians and team members? All of that is the work that we do and we've been tasked with. I'll give just a brief example and a story that I think will help illustrate that point. We held a town hall a couple of weeks ago, And in the town hall, we asked our team members, give us stories of when you've witnessed uncompassionate care, uncommon compassionate care. Give us stories and examples of that. And our team came forward, and the one that stuck with me actually came from the nutritional services department. It was a dishwasher who stood up and said, we had a patient who was in the hospital that couldn't chew. He had a difficult time chewing. He didn't have teeth. He was down on his luck. And the dietary team knew that his favorite meal was cream corn chowder chicken, because it was soft and chewable, and it was something that he could tolerate. And we ran out. So our dietary director and our dietitian, on their own accord, no one asked them to do this.
Wow.
They drove to Publix. They cleared out every cream corn chowder chicken that they had on the aisle, brought it back so that this patient had that meal that he so desperately wanted. Now that took the nurse reaching out to that team member to say, hey, this person really appreciates this. That's just one small example of how we need to take the mission statement off the wall and into the hearts and minds of our team member every time.
Amazing.
I tell our new hire orientation, not everything you do comes in the way of an email from your boss, right? Wow. It comes in those opportunities that you see presented where you can truly make an impact and make a difference in people's lives.
Wow, you know, it reminds me, at SPC, we talk about creating a community of care. And it's about going above and beyond the academic learning and finding ways to support students through caring and doing those extra things. And that's what it sounds like with AdventHealth. The mission is going above and beyond and understanding the target may be far, far, far away, but we're going to keep striving for that target. And so for me, I guess asking you this question as CEO, you know, there's a lot of work to build culture and to keep culture going. Has there been a time when you struggled and said, oh my gosh, this is not going the way I want it to go, and here's what I'm going to do differently? Any of those kind of obstacles that you have run across as CEO? Because it's different being the dishwasher and being the CEO, just in case you didn't know that. What were some things you're like a aha moment that you said, man?
You know, I think COVID is probably the best example of ways that we had to really react and respond to not only patients, because patients are coming in and they're hurting. And at the height of the pandemic, you know, most hospitals were overrun and were running a high census. And at the exact same time, those team members that were taking care of those patients were also dropping off because they were experiencing burnout. They were witnessing firsthand the devastation that COVID was happening. I had team members come up to me and say, I had someone that looked like they could be my brother or my sister just pass away. That takes a toll on people. We recognize that right out of the gate. And, you know, I think across the state, we saw travelers, which are basically temporary nurses, come into the hospital in a big way. And what we at AdventHealth had to do was pivot very quickly to say, how can we adequately staff our units and our teams with people that wear an AdventHealth badge? Because if they wear an AdventHealth badge, then they're gonna care and have that same care and consideration, because it might be a high census, it might be a high number, but at the other end of that is your mom and dad. And so in order to be able to support that, we need our people taking care of those patients. And so we made meaningful adjustments to compensation, which was definitely something that we stretched for, but was a worthwhile investment. We also spent a lot of time with our teams because we wanted to make sure they knew that we care and it's not just a memo coming from someone. We're at the front line with them, taking care of them. So it's very focused and intentional work, and it's a lot of time because if you figure every single unit has a team that has its own personalized and individual culture. So we need to spend time with each and every one of them so that they know we care for them as much as the next person.
Wow, and you know, you remind me how important time is. And being at AdventHealth and seeing people when they're at their worst, usually coming in, they're not feeling well, time just means a lot more. And Have you thought about, or are you looking at what we could do differently when the next COVID hits us? Like what will it look like? What would you do differently if it happens again and we have some sort of pandemic?
Absolutely. We're always planning and preparing for what could happen. And that comes in the way of everything from drills to active communication and planning with all of our teams. We actually have a very active emergency management planning session with the county. So with Pinellas County, with Tarpon Springs, we stay very active. But I think that's also the benefit of being a part of a large scale health system, is that we have the scaled resources to be able to deploy and to be able to provide resources when it's needed. AdventHealth, like many other health systems, stood up a command center at the beginning of the pandemic. To be able to address and respond to some of those instances. And some of them, as we went back, we said, you know what, we could have responded a little bit differently or better in this area. And some things have been built out totally. And an example, I say virtual. So we were just talking before about virtual settings and how you've got Zoom meetings, team meetings, those are all set up virtually now, but there's a lot more technology even to be able to provide patient care. So some of that has been remedied and has been stood up, but it's a constant, like you said, evolving process. And so it's always planning.
What would you tell our students at St. Pete College who are in health programs right now when you think about the speed of change and the potential of another pandemic happening for those who are now in school for health programs? Are there any nuggets you would give them in preparing for the work?
Yeah, I'll at least give an illustrative story and an example. So when the first hospital that I worked at, the hospital I referenced where I worked in the dish room, it was a small community hospital in a rural community. And one day, this was not when I worked there, this is after I had left, someone saw a small brush fire at the bottom of the hill where the employee parking was. That small brush fire turned into what was later known as the Camp Fire, which was the largest fire at the time in the state of California's history. Wiped out the hospital, wiped out the town. And I happened to have a roommate, Ryan Ashlock, who was the CFO at the time. And he told me that they called a code red at 8 a.m. And at 8:10, he went to the emergency department and asked, is there any ambulances here to pick up the patients? Because we have 50 patients that we need to transport and move. They had one ambulance to move 50 patients. So they did what they had to do. They put people in cars, they put people in Suburbans, they did everything they could to get people to safety. Not everything is gonna be a nice, crisp, clean plan that shows up on your desk. Life's gonna be messy, situations are gonna be messy, situations are gonna present themselves that you're gonna have to pivot and think on your feet and be adaptable, and you're gonna have to course correct and progress over perfection. And you're gonna have to lean into it. And I'd say in addition to that, the skill set that you're gonna learn if you invest in yourself at a place like St. Pete College, you'll get tenfold, because when that situation presents itself, you'll know that you were prepared to take that on. We had a similar situation when I first started. So my first month as being CEO at AdventHealth North Pinellas, we had a hurricane come through. That was Ian.
Yeah.
And our hospital needed to evacuate. We were in a low-lying area and we were at risk of getting hit. And so in my first month, it was, all right, we gotta make a call, make a decision, we gotta move patients. And it wasn't ideal. It wasn't ideal for patients. It wasn't ideal for our community. But we did it safely, we did it effectively. Patients were ultimately safe through the process. And we developed a plan afterwards that allowed us to triage and work more seamlessly as a result.
That's great.
So good comes out of those situations. I think in Chris Sproul's podcast, I heard him coin the phrase, kiss the wave, which I think is a powerful thought of embracing these challenges, because there's something that to be gained from the experience.
One of the things that I'm so proud of, Ryan, is what AdventHealth does in the community. You guys are a system that's not on the corner, you are literally engaged in the community and caring about the community. What are some of the things that you guys are working on in the community to partner, to help? We're glad that we have our partnership, of course. But what are some things that you guys are working on in the community?
I think first I've got to start with that word community.
Yeah, right.
Because going back to my story about the fire, this is the town I grew up in, right? So the town I grew up in, the church I went to, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. The school that I went to, the first place I worked, grandma's house, mom and dad's house, no longer there. So to me, community, it means so much more, because part of the healing process is investing that work back into the community. So that didn't happen to Tarpon Springs, luckily. That didn't happen to North Pinellas County, luckily. But my work gets to be, how do I recreate that community that I lost where I came from? So, I could talk about things like Sleep in Heavenly Peace, where we partnered with Sleep in Heavenly Peace to build beds for some of the 6,000 children who live in Pinellas County that don't have a bed to sleep in.
Don't have a bed.
And it wasn't just a partnership like write a check, show up with a suit, and be on your way. It was show up in jeans, sand, cut, dust, do the real work that you need. And we got so much more out of it. I mean, I saw the mayor of Tarpon Springs and the city commissioner there in jeans and grubbies getting dirty and getting sawdust all over them. I saw the Rotary Club there. Everyone was there. And so to just partner with people like that was so amazing. But I think the best part was the next week when our director of chaplaincy service went to deliver the beds to some of the children. And to just see the looks on their faces as they now know that they have a place to sleep, it just it's pretty powerful.
To the audience out there, there's a prime example of standing in the gap. It's all about giving your time, talent, and treasure. And you hear that the employees of AdventHealth literally gave their time. They helped those children find beds. They donated the beds. They cleaned the spots. I mean, it's more than just giving a check. It's giving of your time. And so I'm really proud of that work. And I hope more of you out there who are listening are doing the exact same thing to help those that are less fortunate. I can tell you for sure that both Ryan and I are definitely married to our communities. We love our communities, and we have memories that we know what those communities are, but what they can be. But we choose not to sit back on the sideline and just hope it continues to thrive. We are invested, and I saw your emotion, brother, on that, and talking about your grandparents' home and the church and things of that nature, because you really gained your stripes there. You really earned and learned in that community. And for me, that's what AdventHealth is building now. And SPC is just very proud to be a part of that, to not be on the sidelines, but be in the game. And that's what I admire so much about this hospital system, because so many of us are either we got healthier from AdventHealth, we got wealthier getting a job at AdventHealth, or we've also become wiser because we've learned so much from them, and they're a part of change in our community. So I'm real happy about you sharing that. When we look at healthcare, and we're looking at emerging technologies. And so many healthcare workers are worried about a machine is going to come up to my bed and take my temperature and do, I don't think it's going to happen. But how is the hospital system embracing emerging technologies, and what are we doing with that? I
don't know if the Jetsons are going to show up anytime to do a blood pressure. Maybe, I don't know, I hope not. But so AdventHealth, we are doing a lot with technology, and I think stepping back, I like the analogy of how do we utilize technology, and even with AI. So with AI coming up much more prevalently, it's going to come, but I think it's going to come in a way that will ultimately be more beneficial for everybody. And the analogy I gave is, if you were going to play chess against a computer, and let's not just say me, let's say a world chess champion, a grandmaster, we're at the point that the computer will win every time now. It's just at that point in history where the computer will win. And if it doesn't win every time, it'll win 9 times out of 10. But what would happen if that grandmaster partnered with a computer and used the computer as a tool to play a computer? Now you see that 1-2 combo will win every time in the reverse. So I see technology the exact same way. So it's about leveraging technology as a tool. Our focus is always going to be to care for people, mind, body, and spirit. And so if I can have a piece of technology that gets a nurse closer to the bedside and to spend more time with that person so they can take care of them, mind, body, and spirit, that's going to be a game changer. I'll give just a quick example of some of the technology we're deploying even now. So we recently acquired a SP robot, which is a device that does surgery. It's robotic surgery. And we recently hired a urologist. His name's Dr. Robert Santa Cruz. He was one of the top surgeons in the entire country.
Oh, wow.
We found him because of relationships. So Dr. Paul Arnold, who's a board member at the hospital, said, this is a great guy, I'd love to be partners with him. We recruited him. He's actually starting in August, so he's coming in a couple months. He does this surgery where before you might have to have many incisions and have a long recovery time. Now he'll do a surgery that is minimally invasive, meaning the scar is maybe an inch. It'll be in your back or in your flank where you might not even know that you had a surgery. Recovery time, the surgery takes 8 hours before, now it takes 2 hours. You're home the next day. So it's quick recovery time, less risk of infection, just multiple benefits for the patient.
Wow.
And the types of procedures that this is going after is cancer. So it really is going for that game-changing technology that's going to partner the technology with the person, in this case, it's the hands of a highly skilled surgeon, to ultimately someone feel whole.
Wow.
Now, to me, the triple bank shot win is when we can mix caring and curing. Because you can cure someone and not care for them. So this is where it's on every single other team member at AdventHealth, whether it's the front desk registration, whether it's the nurse in the room, whether it's everyone post-op care, everyone who's had a touch point with that patient. If we can care and cure them, then that's where we were able to.
That's the sweet spot.
That's the sweet spot where we can give whole person care.
And so this is amazing. And so while you're embracing emerging technologies, how are you getting the non-surgical team on board and embracing these technologies to supplement their work, complement their work, improve it, but not take over?
Absolutely. I think this is where leadership is a lot of change management.
That's right.
Change management, which really is a lot of communication and a lot of time, right? Because for them, for that team member, the standing in the gap is, this is something that's new, or that's scary, or that's something that I'm not used to. And it's very easy for me to sit back in my office and say, well, let's do this, if it ultimately isn't going to be a benefit for them. So it's got to be something that goes back to, here's why this is a win for you, whatever that is. In this case, it's going to be, you're going to be able to spend more time with your patient. In other cases, it's going to be a new skill set that is going to make you all of a sudden at the cutting edge of everything that's going on. So it's really going to be partnering all of those things, but it comes back to basic change management communication.
You know, a hospital system as big as yours, and even North County alone, there are a lot of people to communicate with. And so how do you make sure that your zeal and what you're doing so well permeates throughout, you know, the organization? How do you make sure that there's no one kind of, you're being nice and kind and caring, and innovative, but another person may not. So how does it permeate? How does that communication and understanding the North Star get to everybody?
Everything's got to get to the front line.
Yeah.
And the front line
Couldn't
is
agree
that
with you more.
tip of the spear, that person in the case of a hospital that's at the bedside taking care of a person, or an EVS worker who's cleaning the room. I mean, all of that is mission critical. So for us, communication comes in a lot of different ways. We have a daily safety huddle where all of our leaders get together every day and say, here's what we're working on, here's an opportunity for improvement, here's what worked well, here's what's not.
Got it.
We also, to come back to technology, recently deployed this item called lens boards. It's a large, basically almost like a large scale tablet that is on the wall of all of our hospital units. And it's a way for team members to give kudos, to identify safety issues, to give active communication on care plans, on what's going on.
Wow.
I actually pull those reports every week, and I personally will follow up on them because I want those frontline team members to know that if they said something, it matters. It's important. Being in the dish room, I remember how that felt. I remember feeling like I was just a small piece of a larger puzzle, and I need every single team member to know how much they matter and how important they are to the care that gets provided, because ultimately it's going to be your mom, your dad, or their mom or their dad that gets the care.
Yeah.
So it really is that active part of the communication that is needed to make sure that they're following through on what they do. So I ask them, I say, hold me accountable to that. If you say something, I want to address it, because it's not just words, it's something we're going to take action on.
Got it. You know, in some of your other podcasts, you talk about the importance for you to live a purpose-filled life or a purpose-driven life.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about what is your purpose?
Yeah.
What does that mean when you say that?
I think now I have to talk about the standing in the gap for people that stand in the gap with me. So I have a coach that I work very closely with who helped me actually draft a purpose statement. And the other person I have to reference in that who helped me tremendously in that is my mom.
Okay.
So my mom, who was a nurse, and she will proudly say, I wanted to be a worker bee. I did not want to be in management. I didn't want to be in leadership. And so that's the person that I'm always striving towards as we do this work. So, with her help and with my coach, we crafted a purpose statement that was really around being a change agent, but that challenges the norm. And to me, that challenging it's something that it's kind of instinctive. It's more identified with who I am. But it's important because how I test that every day is I say, how many times did my executive team give me a funny look? Because if I'm saying something that is maybe off the wall or is a little bit out there in terms of thinking, I know that I hit a chord, because I've been around healthcare long enough. I'm not clinical, so I don't pretend to be a nurse or a doctor, but I can at least come up with some ideas. And if they give me a funny look, I know that I'm at least thinking the right way, because ultimately we need to be challenging our assumptions, and that even goes for myself. Challenge the assumptions, because what we know today won't be true tomorrow. And so ultimately leaving in North Pinellas better than when it was when I got there is the goal. That means that more people are getting cared for. That means they're getting cared for better. That means we have amazing people that are around taking care of them. And it means that we have a legacy for years to come. I know you said St. Pete College is coming up on 100-year anniversary here in a couple of years.
Yes.
AdventHealth North Pinellas, we've been a part of AdventHealth for only 15 years.
Okay.
But we are coming up on our 100th year anniversary in 2027.
Same year.
So same year. So to me, it's about setting the stage for the next 100 years.
That's amazing. You talked a little bit, and I hope the audience caught that Ryan is saying, my mom helped me with a statement, my own purpose statement, but I also had a coach. So many times I think our college students and others don't think about a purpose statement. Purpose statement is like your why. What are you doing, and what are you here for? And I remember, I think it was John Maxwell who said, people have to buy into the leader first, and then they can see the vision. And so a strong leader has to be comfortable in the skin they're in to be able to cast that vision so that people can follow you or lead with you and move forward. One of the hardest things about leadership from where I sit and probably where you sit is to see potential of a student or your staff, that person can do it, but the will versus skill. Have you had any incidents where the person really has a skill set to do that work, but they just won't do it? And if so, how did you address that?
So mentorship is a big deal for us. So it really comes back to that mentorship. And I'll just be transparent. I'm in a new phase, even in my own leadership, because I've now been a CEO for 2 years. And so now it is much more on me to mentor and grow that next level of leadership so that they're ready to take on the task. To me, it still comes back to the person. If you can connect with the person, if you can connect with those people, you can really more understand what's important to them. There have been a number of people that I've encountered that maybe had all of the skill or all the intelligence in the world, but they weren't passionate about it for whatever reason. And in some ways they needed to see it differently. Sometimes it was who was delivering the message. Sometimes it was how that message was being delivered. But what I've found to be universally true is when you start with the person and you care about that person, that's when you can really connect. You know, it really comes back to the human connection being the foundation of how you can get someone to see the skill even in themselves when they didn't. I mean, I'll just speak for myself. When I was in the dish room, I had a totally different vision for what I wanted to do with my life. And it was because the CFO of that hospital took a particular interest in me to ask me probing questions, to say, you know what, you can maybe think of this differently. And we had built a relationship because he would come in every night to eat dinner late at night. So we built up a friendship and a bond, and he encouraged me to do other things. And I can tell you right now, at the time, if my parents would have said the exact same thing, I probably wouldn't have listened. So it really does need to be on a larger sense and on a larger community to ask those probing questions and to care about the people.
But you just said something to me that was a mouthful. One, as the leader, you have to be willing to engage with everyone, regardless of their role. You know, that your job title does not make you an effective leader or not, it's you. And so when you were a dishwasher, the CEO would sit and talk to you and give you advice. Second, Ryan was willing to listen. You know, sometimes in leadership, people may have the paper, you may have your degree, you may have that, but you need to learn how to fit in and how to listen, how to learn about that organization, how to understand the organizational vision and values and the motto and what they're doing. Because a piece of paper can only get you in the door, it can't keep you in the door. And what Ryan just shared was, one, as a good CEO, you really need to understand you need all of the people, right? Whether you're a dishwasher or you're the CFO or you're every position is necessary. He also talked about every position is valued. That it doesn't matter your title, you're important, if I understand it right. And third, as CEO, you're not above and beyond reproach. Someone needs to be able to come and speak to you, and we should be seeking out opinions and thoughts and understandings, because sometimes as CEO, we think up here it's going well and we find out here is not. And so being able to be comfortable in the skin you're in and speak your truth is equally important, if I understood you right. Do you have any other advice for leaders out there, those who are leading or those who are potential leaders? You know,
I would say actually for the potential leaders, a couple of things. One is authority is usually always assumed in many cases, and I can give examples of that. In the example of the team member who went out and got the soup for the patient, that wasn't necessarily me or anyone else saying that. That was on his heart, and he was compelled to go and do that for that person. But I know there are times and situations and circumstances when, even as a young person coming up, you might reach a situation or come up with a situation where you say, I'm not quite sure about X, Y, or Z. I'm not sure about this situation. And if you're able to act boldly and courageously in those moments and in those times and opportunities, just like you shared, that's where the assumption comes into play. And 9 times out of 10, when someone's looking for the next leader of a department, a position, wherever it is, they go, well, Tonjua was already doing X, Y, and Z, so of course she's going to be the natural fit to go in and take on this next role or this next position. So I would say it always goes to the person who has that initiative.
Yes.
Someone can stand in the gap, and then you got to step through it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
They can open the door for you, and then you gotta take the step, and then you gotta go. So I think the other piece, though, that I would say are mission critical is communication. When I first, I'll just share briefly. When I first got out of college, I worked as a CPA. So I worked in a public accounting firm. That's the time that I actually didn't work with AdventHealth. And in that space, I learned the communication of business. And that's communicating to one different type of group or stakeholders. But how do you communicate to a variety of different stakeholders? So whether it's your classmates, whether it's your professor, whether it's those at home, whether it's those in your community that you're needing to rally support around or rally something that's a cause that you're advocating for. So I think all of those are necessary skills, and I'd say communication would be probably top of the list.
If you had a chance to talk to young Ryan and looking at the world of work as it is today, what would you tell your younger self to watch out for?
I actually, and I would speak this to anyone in the audience who can hear this. It would actually be, don't be afraid of making the tough calls.
Yeah.
Lean into the moments of fear and those moments where it's a little uncomfortable, because that's really where the growth is going to happen. And it is going to be scary at that time period. And then you'll look back and say, I didn't even know who that person was.
Like, how did I do it?
We always have the opportunity to have courage or comfort, and you got to pick one. So are you going to pick to be courageous, or are you going to pick to sit and be comfortable and do as it always was? And so I would encourage those in the audience to be courageous.
I love courage over comfort. I say it a lot in my podcasts. But one of the things that you said was, that's where the growth is being courageous and making that decision, right? That's where the growth is. And so to me, it's almost like saying it's okay to fail forward. Even if you make a mistake, it's okay to learn from that mistake and move on. So failure doesn't have to mean you're going to go all the way back. You can fail and still move forward. You can make a mistake and still move forward. Sometimes I think as college president about mistakes that I make all the time, and who do I owe an apology to tomorrow? Like what did I do? what did I do or say wrong? What did I jump at that I shouldn't have? Or, and that's a part of leadership and being comfortable in the skin you're in. And so I think you're just spot on with that, I can't even add to that. And I guess my final question is, what would you tell the audience about standing in the gap?
I think, first off, this podcast is amazing. So I had the chance to listen to it, and I laughed, I cried, and everything in between. So I think this has just been a tremendous resource. To me, what standing in the gap really means is it's on everyone to do that, to stand in the gap where they see areas and opportunities that things need to be different, and where things need to be better. I think this thought of standing in the gap for me was actually a little bit uncomfortable because it really forced me to put in spotlight, how am I being a better mentor? I ask a question at the end of every year that I journal on, and it's, who have I made a meaningful impact on? Because it forces me to go back and then say, who is that person that I am truly caring for? And I could list off a lot of people, every team member that's at the hospital, the physicians that are on medical staff, my board members, my city commissioners who I have very close relationships with, my Rotary Club. But is there one person that maybe I made better as a result of me standing in the gap? And so that to me is what this podcast is all about. And I just have to give you a absolute kudos for starting this.
You're too kind. Ryan, we're both so passionate about community and making sure that we're a part of the solution and not the problem. We want to make sure the hospital system is, the college system, that we're all working, together. And partnership between education and workforce is more crucial now than ever. I'm always talking about the gap between both, in that as college president, I hate hearing CEOs say, we can't fill the position. And that's what happens. And so what we've been doing with St. Petersburg College and AdventHealth, we've been working together on how we can do more together to help, one, build better workforce for healthcare providers, and two, make sure that not only are the students gaining, but our employees are able to shift from one position to the next through the college or even through the hospital system. What else do you think, or something unique or something you like about our partnership, or what you think we could do differently or better?
Yeah, I think first off, when I first got to AdventHealth North Pinellas, I had a chance to connect with you and with Dr. Rod Davis. And the points you guys both made were, especially in Tarpon Springs where we are, between the hospital and St. Pete College, we're one of the largest employers in that community. And so really we have a lot of influence in that space, and also a big obligation to uphold for our community. So to me, the partnership has been, first off, amazing. Having Dr. Davis on the board has been just an absolute blessing to us. But that partnership gives everyone a firsthand look at what are we seeing and experiencing, and then how can we have our team members seamlessly integrate and go back to St. Pete College if it's something that they need, either for a skill set they need to be tooled, or to get a certification that they need to be more readily available and readily deploy. One of the things that was really important when I first got here was medical assistants. These are people that work in a clinic and are your first point of contact and are doing all of your initial assessments when you present to a clinic office before you get a primary care appointment or before you get a specialist appointment. And being able to pipeline those medical assistants into the clinics where it was quick turnaround times, rapid fire, and able to get them working faster, that really got all of them on a pipeline and on a track to ultimately be successful. And ultimately, patients got better care as a result. And the beauty of partnering with St. Pete College from AdventHealth standpoint is we've got a great opportunity, because that's where it starts, but that isn't where it ends.
Exactly.
I mean, every single person that is working in one role is gearing up and teeing up the next role that they need, because new technology, because they want to advance their career, and ultimately because they want to advance themselves. And earn a living accordingly. So being able to work very closely with you on programs like that has been just mission critical. And I'm just incredibly grateful for the opportunity to partner with SPC.
That's why you got a partner. Education, workforce, one team, one community. We're all about helping people thrive. Thank you for joining us on this insightful episode of Standing in the Gap with Dr. Tonjua Williams. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Ryan Quattlebaum, President and CEO of AdventHealth North Pinellas. Ryan's journey from dishwasher to CEO, his dedication to ensuring the highest standard of care, and his philosophy of standing in the gap for his community, clients, and employees have provided us with valuable lessons in leadership and commitment. Ryan's story, it reminds us that every role, no matter how small, contributes to a greater purpose and can shape the successful and meaningful careers that we so love. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing your experiences, your leadership, your love for community and people, and strategy to make sure that AdventHealth continues to remain one of the #1 healthcare systems in the nation. We're so pleased that you are here with us. And until then, stay committed, stay inspired, keep standing in the gap for those who need it most. Goodbye.